My first question for you is this. Why do you lead? You may not have a clear answer to that one right off the bat. As I say, it's first thing in the morning. But I'd like you to write that down and keep it in your mind, not just through this talk this morning, but all day, throughout the entire program, and then all week as you're here with OSCON. Why do you lead? You have to get to the answer to that question. Because if you can't figure out why you lead, all the how-tos and the what-to-dos are going to be marginally effective at best. You've got to tap into what you are trying to accomplish, what drives you, what motivates you, what impact you want to have on the world. Get to that why, and then all the how-tos and whats will be amplified, and they'll be tremendous for your success. Now, at Harvard, we are blessed with the world's largest academic library. It's 14 buildings. It's access to I don't know how many online databases. And when you comb through all of that, you'll discover, after 175 years, that there is no commonly accepted definition of leadership. Everyone's got their own variety, their own variation on it, and that's okay. So we decided we needed our own because we weren't going to be the only people who didn't have one. And we noticed that over time, the definitions kept getting longer and more obtuse, right? Lots more words in there. That wasn't particularly helpful. So the definition we came up with, and the one I would want to share with you today, is this. People follow you. It's just 3 words. It's not hard to remember. You can get the tattoo. We got a discount. If people are following you, you're leading. And if they're not, you're not. This is all about behavior. This is not about role or rank or what your title is or if you have the best view in the office. This is about people and you. And that's what makes the definition rather complex. Because we as human beings are complex. We have different motives, we have different experiences, we have different backgrounds. And understanding people and understanding you, those are the real keys to getting people to follow. And if you think back about the list you made about who you thought was a great leader, who you thought was a lousy leader, a lot of that will come down to the kinds of people you want to be with in your life. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to do a bit of a fairly radical culture shift. The first I want to ask you is, anyone here in possession of the nuclear launch codes? President Putin and President Obama are both in town today. Anyone? About the first 2 decades of that program, the launch code was 00, 000, 000, 000. They didn't want to forget it in case they had to make a fast decision. I think now it's the president's birthday. Okay, no nuclear launch codes. Is anyone here expecting to give birth in the next 6 hours or have your immediate significant other? Okay, no, again, because you shouldn't be here if that's the case. But absent those 2 contingencies, I'm going to ask you to do your best to divorce yourself from your devices for the next 55 minutes. If you want to take notes, that's great. If you're live tweeting, that's fine. But the everyday email, you're back and forth, if you really could try. And I ask you that not just because I'm greedy for your attention, but I am, but also because if you want to lead, if you aspire to lead, one of the greatest tools you have is your presence. Your ability to be right here, right now with these people, or if you're with your team or in a one-on-one, to be fully present. You cannot lead through Snapchat. You cannot lead through Twitter. You've got to be able to be there. Now, as Laurel mentioned, I'm going to share today some of the work we've done at Harvard, my program there, called the National Preparedness Leadership Initiative. And we look at leaders in crisis situations. We go on the ground, observe them as things are unfolding, seeing them make decisions, lead people, motivate people to see what works and what doesn't. So I've been on the ground here right after Hurricane Sandy, for example, here in New York and New Jersey, down in the Gulf after Deepwater Horizon. I've been involved a lot lately with cybersecurity and cyber events and trying to understand what makes people tick in these situations and then how do you come back and use that in organizations. Because it turns out those kinds of situations are actually sort of the Olympics of leadership. And if you're going to go to the Olympics, you don't start practicing the day you get there, right? There's a long process beforehand. So the kinds of things that work really well in a crisis situation are the very same tools you can use every single day in your organizations, every single day with your team, with your boss, with your coworkers. I'm going to give you something we call the dilemma of the cube. If you imagine for a moment this cube is opaque rather than being transparent, and I cut a hole in the side of it, there we go, peephole A, what are you going to see? You're going to see a triangle. When I cut a hole in the top, what are you going to see? A circle. This is a tool we developed after 9/11. If you think back to that awful day, 343 New York City firefighters perished. 23 New York City police officers perished. Why the discrepancy? Was it luck? Partially. Right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time? Absolutely. But it turned out the police had a helicopter. And the helicopter was flying around the towers. And they noticed it was getting awfully hot. Things were getting white hot that could affect the structural soundness of the building. The police radioed down and said, "Get the heck out of there, this doesn't look good." Police began leaving the building. The firefighters didn't have a helicopter. Nobody told them to get out, so they did what firefighters do, which is run into burning buildings and try and save people. And unfortunately, there were many more of them inside when it collapsed than there were police. Now, part of this has been solved by technology after the fact, interoperable radios. Although when I interviewed the head of emergency management here a few years back, he said, you know what? The radios work together. They would have never thought to call each other because they're just living in different worlds. Police and fire are just in a whole different universe. I give you this tool because you need to be thinking about the different peepholes into the cubes of the situations you face. Because if you're vice president of peephole A, and you've got an advanced degree in peephole A, and you control the budget in peephole A, guess what? You get pretty wedded to a peephole A view of the world. And you'll get pretty argumentative saying, damn it, that's a triangle in there. And the same thing with peephole B. When in reality, the situations you face have much more complicated shapes than a cone and many more peepholes to look through. So this very simple tool, one that you can take back and teach to your teams as soon as you leave this conference at the end of the week, can help you remember to look at the different perspectives, to think about that complexity, that people are looking at it from different perspectives. They have different priorities, they have different agendas, they have different skill sets, they have different ways of viewing the world. And the answer comes from integrating all of them, not from arguing over who's right and who's wrong from a static point of view, but be trying to integrate that information and figure out how you're both maybe partly right and maybe both partly wrong, and you get to the actual truth. So remember the cone and the cube is a deceptively simple tool to help navigate complexity.
So what is a crisis? Well, I don't know, maybe you try and launch a national health insurance exchange, or a few million of your customer records get stolen. To pick on my own home institution, since we're here in Boston, a couple of years back, there was an investigation into a possible cheating scandal among the undergraduates. And one of the administrative deans got to look at faculty email. Let me tell you, there's nothing the NSA can cook up that's more grievous to a faculty member than having anybody look at their email. It's like waterboarding in academia. Having a big storm the day of your summit. We face crises all the time. We face high-stakes, high-pressure situations. And what we've discovered is that a lot of our thinking, our physiological and our psychological processes are the same in these small crises and these large crises. So this is something you'll be using every single day. And in our research across all these incidents, we have found there's roughly a 30-70 rule, which is that if you get everything right in terms of your protocols, your practices, your procedures, you've got all your technical things in line, it'll get you about 70% there. But that last 30%, that's the leadership piece. That's the piece we're going to talk about today. And what it really is, it's the human factors. If the people who are working for you and with you don't perform as well as they should, you will not get to the 100% you have to get to in terms of crisis response. You've got to be able to master the human factors, and it really, again, we've seen it over and over again, a lot of attention gets paid to what's our response protocol, who are our backup vendors, all that stuff is really important, but it won't get you all the way there. So what you've got to do is balance sort of management, which we view as applying existing knowledge to a known situation with a fairly predictable outcome, to leadership, which is working in a much more dynamic environment. And as ambiguity, the dynamism, and the risk in the situation go up, you wind up calling more and more in that leadership capacity because you're facing a novel situation, you've got to do some creative problem solving, you've got to bring things together in a new and different way. We're all watching the Olympics now. I hope you are. It's been great watching the Olympics so much. It's relevant here because although I can't tell you who's going to win the medal count, and I can't tell you who's going to win the individual events, I can tell you one thing for certain. None of the athletes who are in Sochi right now started practicing yesterday, or last week, or last month. They've been working at this for years. And the same is true of leaders. If you aren't practicing your leadership skills every opportunity you get, you won't be ready when that big crisis hits. You've got to work those muscles. It's building muscle memory in your brain. It's being able to know what you have to do and have some things ready for yourself to move forward. You've got to think like an athlete, build your skills over time. And the more you think about it, you'll see that there actually are leadership opportunities you have presented to you every single day. There are always chances to improve upon it. And one of the things we have found in our research is that the really great leaders, this is a lifetime pursuit. They don't stop. One of the folks we've spent a lot of time with is Admiral Thad Allen, who you may know. He's a former Coast Guard commandant. He was the head of the response during Deepwater Horizon, the National Incident Commander, and also during Katrina. Now, he has 4 stars on his shoulder. He's retired. He is still thinking about how to be a better leader. He's still thinking about it every single day. People like that don't give up the pursuit. They're always thinking about how can I improve myself and how can I improve my capacity. Little exercise we teach our students, our executive education students to do, is take a day of what we call full presence. So every single person you encounter over the course of that day, try and have a genuine human engagement. Use their name. The barista at Starbucks, if you see a little name tag, use their name. Ask a question. Listen to the answer. The person who gives you takes your money at the parking garage. The security guard at the front door of your building. Every single person, try it for a day. And you'll begin to see how people react to you. And then your brain will begin to learn this and say, oh, that's the reaction I want to get. That was a good thing. Or that wasn't the reaction I wanted to get. That was a bad thing. Write down, or if you don't have a pen, put in your mind, good leader, bad leader. Raise the hands. Good leaders? Good leader, you think? Why?
She's smiling, she's warm, friendly.
Smiling, warm, friendly? Good leader? She's a woman? Okay. She's confident? Great. How about bad leader? Anybody see bad leader off the bat? You're an unusual group. I usually get at least there we go. Yes, sir.
I looked at it as a good leader, but arms crossed.
The arms crossed, right? So a little closed body language there. A little skeptical, heads tilted. Yes, Thompson.
Can she understand my question?
Can she understand? It's not quite clear. I mean, she could be sort of defensive there, right? The important thing here, it's a good lesson about your brain, is that all of you had an opinion. There's no right or wrong answer here. The only thing you know about this woman is, I told her she was your new boss, and she makes some part of her living posing for stock photography. She could be the most warm, supportive, thoughtful, visionary boss you've ever had, or the most clueless, self-centered, politically backstabbing, undermining jerk. You just don't know. But our brains go and fill those gaps. Our brains fill those gaps automatically every time. When you meet someone, you have that first impression. That's why someone told you once upon a time you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Our brains are running in the back of processes running to evaluate people all the time. And what they're looking for is threats and opportunities. How many of you here think you're rational thinkers? So what are the rest of you? Truth is, we're actually a lot less rational than we're led to believe. We are taught that we are very rational in making sort of calm, considered decisions. And rational actor theory, which those of you who went to business school were probably taught this, or if you studied economics as I did as an undergrad, teaches us that we go through and we weigh the pros and the cons and make a very sound, reasoned decision. In your business practices, you probably do, because you have processes in place to help with this. But in our individual lives, we actually don't do this very much. Think, for example, if you went to the local CVS to buy a tube of toothpaste. According to the rational actor theory, you'd have exactly calculated the percentages of teeth whitening, breath freshening, and cavity protection you want. You'd then do some calculations based on the price per unit, and 4 or 5 hours you'd be okay, I want the Crest Plus. We don't do that. We make much more emotional decisions, and our brain has a lot of processes running in the background. And you guys understand hardware architecture, right? There's a lot of processes running in the background to help us make decisions really quickly. There's a What Daniel Kahneman has described as a slow system and a fast system in the brain. And most of our thinking is done in this fast system, which you're very rarely aware of. It's sort of subconscious or semi-conscious. It's very low energy, so it lets you do a lot of work fast, and it's always running. So if you drove here this morning, you may have been a little bit more aware than normal because of the weather, but if you think of a typical day driving to work, you're not thinking a whole lot about which muscles to activate in order to press the gas pedal, for example, or even probably which turns to take, because you take the same route every day. Your fast system is getting you there doing all these automatic processes, and your slow system is engaged with, thinking about the presentation to your boss, or the launch of the new system you've got to do next week, or the things you remember to be at your daughter's rehearsal that evening.